This is Leaders in the Trenches, and your host today is Gene Hammett.
Hi, my name is Gene Hammett. I'm the host of Leaders in the Trenches, and I've got a question for you today. What does it take to be the best place to work? Those accolades that are given out to companies that their employees have rated their company as the best place to work. What are you doing to make that happen? Well, I've got someone who has been listed on the best place to work by Glassdoor. I think it was fourth on the list for small business. His name is Robert Glazer with Acceleration Partners. He's a founder there, and we talked about the importance of putting employees first. You've heard me talk about that before, but he was very clear in why you must put employees first and what that does for the overall culture. And he's grown, I think he added 47 employees last year. He's now at 140. Make sure I got those numbers right. But he has a fantastic story about what does it take to grow. We talk about some special insights. One is why he doesn't believe in a 2 weeks notice. And so across the board inside of his company, there is no such thing as a 2 weeks notice either way and what that's done for his business. So we're going to talk about the best place to work with Robert Glazer. And here is the interview. Hey, Robert, how are you?
Good, Gene. How are you?
I'm excited to have you here at Leaders in the Trenches.
Excited to be here. Hopefully I can climb out of the trenches.
Well, I think being in the trenches is a good thing. We can talk about that in a few minutes, but I've already let our audience know a little bit about you. I'd love for them to hear it in your own voice. So tell us about you and who you serve.
Sure. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Acceleration Partners, and we manage what's called large-scale affiliate programs for some well-known big global brands. An affiliate program is where someone connects to a partner and gets paid on a performance basis. So a large brand, I'll pick someone who's not a client, but a large brand like Walmart might have 10 or 20,000 partners who all do different types of activity, and all of that link is tracked, and they're only paid when there's a sale rather than kind of paying for marketing on a win-lose basis. So that's what we do. And then, how we do it is we've tried to really build a great culture. We're 100% distributed, yet we've been able to win a lot of culture and best places to work awards. And that's been a real competitive differentiator for us as we've grown.
Well, that's the main topic that we're going to have today with culture. But I want to ask you from a growth standpoint, how many employees do you have?
We have probably 140 now.
And how quickly have you grown through that? When did that start? And
I think we've been in business about 11 years. And about year 8, we hit the classic kind of hockey stick where I think last year we hired 47 people in 2018. And obviously we had some attrition in there. So about 2 to 3 years ago, when we actually wrote a vivid vision and went on our 3-year growth plan, I think we were about at 45, 50 people.
Are you friends with Cameron?
I am. Cameron coached me at one point, and I know Cameron through EO. And that's honestly been one of I never would have believed actually when we wrote that whole thing out that everything would come true. And now this end of this year is the end of our first one. I have to write another one, and it's been interesting.
Well, I wanted to figure out, for the audience to really talk about some of the impact that you've made. And we don't have to talk specific numbers, but what is the one thing within the growth of the company that you're most proud of?
I think it's the consistency. And again, we operate in an industry that is not, marketing agencies that tend to be really not good places to work, a lot of turnover. I think our ability to offer a great service to clients has been our ability to retain our best people. And we really haven't lost any of our stars. We have turnover. There's people that's not a fit, but I'm more proud of how we did it. I think it's great to be good at the product and service, but really how we did that and just a foundation of excellence overall.
That opens up a lot of questions for me. I'll go specifically into one. I'm writing an article about this and writing a book too, but in my research with fast growing companies, the Inc. 5000 growing at astronomical rates, I ask them this question: and if a leader's responsibility is to put employees first or customers first, what would you say?
Employees first, because I don't know how it works. Look, I'll tell you a story that's I'll give you a preview that's coming up in my book. But we once had someone come to work for us from a company that was really struggling, who said that their leader sat down with the new leader and said, "Just keep the clients happy. I don't care about your people." And she was like, "Well, how am I supposed to do that? We're a services business."
Yeah.
I think Simon Sinek or someone said it, you can't, customers will never love a business if the employees don't love it first. So I think all the stakeholders are in a triangle, but your employees have to like working there. I don't know how your clients will like your service.
And of course, leaders will say that they have both, and both are important, and it's a very hard decision. But in my research and talking to over 300 Inc. 5,000 leaders, it's 94.1% employees first. So,
and I always tell people, a lot of what I speak about is this notion of a healthy, high performance work culture. Like, we are a tough place to work. We have ridiculously high expectations. We've grown X%, for 10 years in a row. That's not mutually exclusive with treating people well or having honest conversations when stuff doesn't work. It's not like kumbaya and violins. I think that's what a lot of people assume. We're not like a family business. It's high growth rate, performance oriented. Our clients are demanding. But basically, we just try to grow our people with the business rather than constantly cycling them out. Because if you grow, so I'm sure if you talk to these businesses, if you continuously grow 20 or 30% a year, every time you double, people say you break half your people or half your processes. I think we're happier to break our processes and fix those, but we've really tried to focus on growing employees holistically so that they can move along on that journey with us.
Well, this is going to be a good conversation. The book I'm working on right now is from all this research, and it really talks about how performance cultures are good until they're no longer really serving the people.
Yeah.
And so what's better to look at is a growth culture where the people are actually growing, exactly what you just said. And I want to shift gears right now because it's like excited as I am about the book.
Yeah.
You came here to talk about the culture of the company. So, you mentioned vision. Is that the first place that you would recommend someone starting, or is there a step before that if you want to align your culture?
So my 5 elements of a great culture, or it's really 3 elements and 2 modifiers, are, and again, the hundreds of companies that I talk to, these are always in play. So they have a vision. Here's where we want to go. It's exciting. You join up. They have real core values, not the ones on the wall that no one behaves or acts. And then they have goals and targets. And I think that's where some of the performance and accountability comes in. So, hey, we're on this 3-year march to get to this place. Here are our values, and here are the numbers and targets and things that we want to hit along with our march. And then the validators are consistency and clarity. And I think this is where a lot of stuff goes wrong. So you're consistent about values, you're consistent about vision, you're consistent about goals, and you're clear about all those things. And this is where the operating systems like Gazelles or EOS or Traction or OKR, so they really help keep all that stuff in place. But I think the definition of a great culture is just very consistent with what it says and what it does. It's not an absolute. I think there are cultures that would really be great for one person, terrible for another. I have this whole example of, I use a lot of company A that's like started by an ex-athlete, and it's all about competition, and the bonuses go to the top 10% of the people, and they're, growing 40% a year and creating new products, and that works. And then there's like the family company by the river where they, grow 3% a year and value stability and value loyalty. People in each of those companies are probably not like working in the other companies. So I do the cultural onboarding for everyone at AP. And what I will say is, you and I both know every company has a culture by design or by default. But what frustrates people the most in talking to them coming in where they're angry is where that past company, they might have just, if they had to come the culture by default, where no one preached anything, but was very clear to see what the company valued, like that's fine. But it's the one where they talked about these things and put them on the wall and then never actually did anything with them. So we just try to be really consistent across all this stuff, think, say, and do. And we always say, like, if someone doesn't work out, they're working out, not working out because for the exact reasons where they're like, wow, you guys, when you said own it as a core value, that's really what you meant by own it, like not blame other people and all this stuff. Like, versus like, you guys say own it and you're full of crap. They more identify that this isn't the right place for them. And 90% of the time when we are having a performance issue, that person opts out because they're like, this company is very consistent with what it says, what it does, how it thinks. I've identified that this isn't me, so I'm going to raise my hand to kind of step off the boat.
Robert, I don't know how familiar you are with my work because I'm just beaming over here because one of the really the big idea behind the speech I give all the time is leadership that inspires ownership.
Yeah.
And
I've not seen the speech, so it's just
maybe you need to hire me. No, I'm just kidding. But John Hall, our mutual friend, has seen the speech.
All right.
John Rampart. I spoke at the same event they did last year in February. But the idea behind getting people to own it, and I have my own thoughts, and I won't taint you right now, but what is one thing you could share with us that gets people to really own it?
Well, I'll give you a great example. So we have debriefs that you have to write at AP and share. Actually, the debriefs touch all of our core values, which are own it, excel and improve, and embrace relationships. And we have one sentences and paragraphs behind all those. And I don't expect everyone to have the verbiage correct, but there's no one who doesn't know own it, excel, improve, embrace relationships. Like, you have to know that. So we have a thing after action reports. If there's a client leave, if there's a bad hire, there's a financial mistake or whatever, manager has to write up a report. And they have to share it with the extended leadership team. We review it, and then it gets sort of released to the company. And we're all about, like, you can make mistakes. And the point is, like, let's make it, document it. It talks about what processes need to be fixed. How could we avoid this next time? And it goes on. I can pretty much tell you after reading someone's first AAR whether they'll be with the company in 3 to 6 months, because they either take something that was external, like the client running out of money, and talk about how they could have seen it better, what we could do, or whatever. Or they take something that's probably not as external, but they blame all external forces. Well, we couldn't have foreseen this, we couldn't have foreseen that. And that when I read those reports, it's just a huge example for me of whether someone is core value aligned or not core value aligned.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have questions in the hiring process to get people to, are they more aligned to what you already have values?
Yeah, we as part of our Excel and Improve, we are crazy about, and I drive everyone nuts about making things better. We talk about updating the operating system. Like, we have one code base we run on, but anyone can have a better idea to update it. We just then, roll it out to everyone. So I thought we were really good years ago when we worked with our friend, we mentioned Cam Harold, that we had all these behavioral based core value questions. And then Cam was doing some interview training for our team and said, so how does the interviewer know what a good answer is? Like, what's a 1? What's a 10? And we're like, well, that's a good point. So now it actually, it says, here's what you should look for. Here's a 1 answer. Here's a 10 answer. We really tried to codify this in the interview process so that even if the story sounds great, you're then told really what you should be looking for and where you should press.
Within your culture, do you have a favorite interview question?
It's funny. It's an article I'm thinking about writing. I don't interview much anymore. Part of Own It is that I'm probably not the best interviewer. I work on the system, but I don't want to interview people and be like, oh, Gene was really nice, but I didn't do the work to know if Gene could do the work. So I interview for my executive team, and there hasn't been that many in the last few years. I also think a lot of people rely on their interview voodoo question. And this was the article I was going to write, that there's this question that they love to ask. That's one question that they determine everything on. There's no science behind it. If they looked across all the things, it's not predictive. Yeah. I personally believe in a repeatable process that everyone does the interviewing. We bring the data together. We look at it. We go across the sheet. That's more done. But I will say the type of people that don't work here in a fast-paced environment just get rattled easier and ambiguity. So for high-level interviewing, myself and my president has been known to ask, like, why shouldn't we hire you? And there's no right answer to that, but there's just people who collapse during that question or who can compose themselves and respond to it. And we found that composition is a key part of success here.
I like that question because it is challenging. I'm thinking to myself how I would answer that, and I don't know. I wouldn't collapse, but
Cam gave us a whole list of really tough questions, and he always wait 7 seconds, don't let him off the hooks. Ask it, wait 7 seconds. But there are a bunch of questions like that where if we talk to 3 people, what's 3 misconceptions about you? That's another one. Not that we force negative questions, but it is very important on how someone responds to that. And just thrown off a little bit, Ken, there's not a right answer. I think it's just about how you stay composed.
Robert, given the context of this, I'll share with you my favorite question that I use with my clients and things like that is, tell me a time when you had a really big growth goal that you didn't make.
Yeah.
And that's a good part of the question, but the real killer there is, why didn't you make it? Because if they blame someone else, that they're going to blame someone else in the work. Yeah. Or if they said, you know what, I wasn't disciplined with my diet. I didn't I didn't make the real commitment to get into the gym or whatever it may be. And they took real ownership of that, you know that you can work with that person at a higher level.
Yeah, when we do debriefs, again, not that we have a lot of turnover, but we just really examine things. Excel and improve and base relationships is really important, but it almost always own it. That becomes the core thing. There are people that just own it and people that don't. And like we say, like if they own it, then it's easier for them to embrace improving it or embrace relationship. But that ends up being the gating factor. Everyone's very transparent. There's a lot of, hey, I screwed that up. No, you want people competing in your company to say that they screwed something up rather than, deferring blame to others.
I want to go back to culture for just a few minutes. What's the hardest thing about maintaining a top culture? Because, you recently won accolades in Glassdoor for what specifically were the phrasing?
For 2018, we were number 4 on the SMB business list.
Which is the best culture?
Best places to work in the U.S.
Best place to work. Okay. So what's the hardest thing about maintaining that?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing, and everyone's always worried about it, and I tell them, don't be worried, because if we can't maintain this culture, I don't want to get up and come to work here every day. But it becomes, you have more levels, right? So your ambassadors of the culture move sort of a level down, and a lot of the stuff goes through them. So there's a lot more repetition required. Again, we don't want bureaucracy. We want to follow all these things, but it's less me to a manager or me to employee, and me sort of coaching, or the leadership team coaching our up and coming managers on how to live that and embody that and teach it in others. So I just think as you have more people, it requires, these principles require more repetition throughout the organization. But if you get hiring right on culture, you have saved yourself 90. I mean, if you're talking about 80-20 rule, I would put all of my work into hiring correctly, because everything else that comes after that is we have some of these people come in, they just ooze they raise their hand and volunteer. They just there's nothing I have to do with those people, right? There's no coaching. There's nothing around that. So that really cures a lot of ills.
As they say, batteries included.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you think about creating a business that's going to meet change and go through different growth spurts and changes in the market, what do you think about how the way your team collaborates together right now?
Yeah, it comes back to one of our core values that excel and improve. So we talk about how that you can't actually have excellence without improvement, particularly in digital marketing. If you're doing the same thing as 3 years ago, it can't possibly be excellent, right? It's changed. Yeah. So we are constitutionally trying to challenge the status quo, feedback, value innovation, value new ideas. I just think what you reward gets promoted and recognized. So we call people out for innovative stuff that they did. We just had someone on our all company call do kind of a case study of, he was able to solve a problem that no one could solve for a couple of years with the clients. And so, we're giving recognition to the people who are breaking the mold and pushing it, rather than recognition to the people doing the same thing for 3 years. I think if the culture rewards people being safe, then you will have safety. If it rewards kind of risk-taking, learning, and feedback, then that is where innovation comes from.
One of the aspects of ownership that I focus on, and I don't know where you stand on this, but I really have seen the value of encouraging the entrepreneur spirit across the company. What got your business off the ground, Robert, was, maybe a little bit of naive, knowing what you're heading into, and also risk-taking and courage and, persistence and resourcefulness, and all of those things that make you who you are as an entrepreneur. Don't you want more of your employees to have those kind of approaches to their work?
Yeah. And then you have to sort of align their compensation, to that too. I think, that gets tricky. If I've seen, because I want an ownership culture, but, I get all the upside. Well, then that doesn't really work. That's not, but yeah, I agree. And we love people that are entrepreneurial and independent. Sometimes those people are problematic in companies, but it's good. We try to not have a lot of top-down rules or processes. Like someone says, hey, can we do an X? Sure. Can you take the lead on that? Or I'd love to do people know that if they raise their hand, and raising their hand is is the way to do it. So I really think it's about what you reward. So if you reward that behavior, and I don't necessarily mean financially a lot of times in cultures, but it's, are you calling it as out? Is that the example? Are you making a case, for those things? Then you'll get more of it. But yeah, I think everyone needs to feel empowered. I think part of the thing about a vivid vision that really works is that there's no how. It's like, hey, here's where we're marching towards in a couple of years, but I need you guys to build the plan and own that plan and carry your piece of it.
One of the other elements of culture we talked about in the beginning, and we're running out of time here, so I want to make sure I give you a chance. What have I not asked you about that's very important to you having one of the best places to work?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we have done, our newest thing, and people can Google this and look it up if they want to, but it's this program called Mindful Transition. So one of the things that I got frustrated with as the place trying to build a good culture is this whole sort of 2 weeks notice paradigm. Like, well, why? So, we have this open culture and whatever, and Gene just gave us 2 weeks notice and he's been interviewing, and now all these doctor's appointments he asked for, I'm not so happy with him. And we kind of a couple of years ago, we're like, can we blow this up? We talked about our moonshot, and it took a while, but we built a system where we made it totally safe for people to have honest conversations and say, either way, like, look, this isn't working out, and maybe can we help you find you something better? Or when people tell us that they're interested in leaving or thinking about something else, they can continue to work here. We work on a mindful transition plan. They can interview openly with their boss. I just think it's fluid now. People don't stay at a place forever. And if you discourage these conversations, a lot of times you don't find that someone wants to do something different. You're going to have that role in 6 months. And we would have lost some great people if we didn't have those conversations and know that we were going to have roles for them. So we've mostly really eliminated this whole aspect of 2 weeks notice. And we have people that are working here now that we know are leaving in 8 to 12 weeks. And that's also de-risked working here. And that if people know that, hey, if it doesn't work out, and again, you can't meet our performance standards with value fit, I'm going to separate that and my care for you as a person. Gene, the job's not working out, but I make calls, I do references, our team helps people find the job. Like, we want those people to do well, even if this isn't the right place for them. So that's been a really important program for us. I think it's something different. And honestly, now we're trying to just get the word out and get other companies to do it because we think it's a better way. And we're amazed at how many companies still kind of operate on the 2 week notice thing when all aspects of their culture that they're working on would not align with that.
I've never heard that before, and I could see how it removes the stigma of something playing in their head. They've got to, maybe I need to go look for another job, but you're having an open, transparent conversation, which that's probably a critical part of your culture as well, right?
Yeah, totally open. And we always say, like, early detection system, because when things become I have all the objections in the book on this. People think I'm toxic and stealing. I'm like, look, this is way down the line when you've ignored this for like a year. So we first start having the conversation, like, hey, Gene, you've been late like a couple of weeks. And we're like, what's going on? Oh, well, I lost my sitter. Well, all right. Well, can we change your hours, or is this not the job you want anymore? And just have that discussion. And we just have never felt like they need to leave right away. We hire great people. And someone once said to me, for the companies that are so worried about people stealing and cheating or whatever, it's like, look, either you're hiring terrible people or something about your culture has made them this way. Like, we hire good people and who are good human beings. And so when something is not working, we hope that we can have an open discussion with them and help them find something that's a better fit. I mean, I was talking to one head of culture a couple months ago, and they were saying, well, look, we have a great culture. We do all this stuff, but the day that someone tells us they're leaving, we thank them, whatever, but we walk them right to the door that day. We just think it's best to walk them to there and be done. And then when I said to her, I was like, but you understand the message that sends. I understand you're saying it's on good terms and people will call that. Like, the message is, as soon as you leave or announce leaving or anything, you are walked to the door that day. So you will never hear from anyone earlier in the process, because that's the message. Even though you're not shaming them or whatever but you're asking them to leave that day, you're saying that as soon as you tell us, it doesn't work in the interviewing. So I actually think what they wanted was the opposite of what they were getting, but you have to be really careful about the signals that you send. We've said to anyone, if you call us out, if anyone had one of these discussions and felt that they were treated unfairly or walked to the door or whatever, you can let everyone know. And we have to hold ourselves honest and accountable for that.
Well, I appreciate that. One last follow-up, and I just want to give you just a chance to give us the value of this. When you have that, you call it a mindful transition?
Mindful transition program. Yeah.
Mindful transition program.
If you Google that, there's a video on it, a case study from a keynote I did at Tiny Pulse if people want to read how.
Okay. Are you getting people to re-engage, like not leave? Like once they have that open conversation with you and like, this wasn't working out, you guys address it, and then they end up being a great employee?
Yeah. So I have this decision tree in the program in the book. What I always say is that we treat symptoms, not root causes. It's kind of like Western medicine versus Eastern medicine, where you give 3 people an aspirin for their headache, and one's dehydrated, one's allergic to gluten, and one has a brain tumor. So, very different things. So as soon as we dig in on any issues of unhappiness or problem early, and a lot of times, we can figure it out. This isn't the right role. We can switch them to another role. We had 2 people recently who really wanted to do different stuff, non-client service roles. They had those discussions early. Soon we talked about how we needed this new operational role. We were able to say to them, can you hold on for 3 months? And then their performance jumps because they know that they only have to do this for 3 more months and then they're in their new role. So a lot of times you head it off by figuring out what the problem is early, and before all the symptoms pile up, you solve the root. In fact, I think performance improvement plans are really wrong in 99% of cases because I think they're treating that symptom. You should always assume that when someone's threatened with a gun to the head on their job, they will perform better for 30 days. But if you haven't addressed the underlying issue, it's just going to come back. How many times does someone jump up on a PIP plan? If they're in the wrong career or not good at sales and you put them on a PIP, again, that motivation, they're just going to come back. So we find this whole program is actually, the transition's the last piece of it. The first part is how do you create a culture of openness? How do you get all these discussions going? And then it's only in actually not the majority of circumstances that would you say, all right, we need to work on an external transition.
Perfect. Good place to wrap this up. Robert, thanks for being here at Leaders in the Trenches. How can our audience get in touch with you?
Sure. Best way to find me is at robertglazer, glazer.com, or you can join 100,000 other leaders who follow my Friday Forward each week, which you can probably Google Friday Forward, or it's fridayfwd.com.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for being here at Leaders in the Trenches.
Thanks, Gene.
Love these interviews, talking about growth, talking about people, putting them first, about how you do that in unique ways. I pull so much interesting insights out of this and reinforce a lot of the stuff around fast growth for my own book that's coming up. If you want the insight behind the research I've done lately, make sure you go to genehammett.com/hypergrowth. That's one word, hypergrowth. And you can find the 6 disciplines of hypergrowth. You can get that absolutely for free. So download it now, and you will be able to understand exactly what I mean when you put actionable tactics in place so that companies can grow fast. Well, that's my take today. As always, lead with courage. I'll see you next time.